Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of StreamTime Sports. I'm your host, Nick Meacham, CEO at Sports Pro. Now, this week's episode of the podcast is part of our new series called Making YouTube Pay. And in this edition, I'm speaking to someone who's based a little bit closer to home for me, and that is the CEO of the Swedish Women's Hockey League, Angelica Lindeberg. I got a chance to speak to her at the Sports Pro Media Summit, where she had just come off stage presenting the approach and strategy that the Hockey League took to launch on YouTube. It's a really interesting conversation to hear what she's had to go through to get the league and the platform up and running in just a couple short months. So a great conversation that I really enjoyed, both what I recorded and also catching up with her afterwards and talking a little bit more about life in Sweden. But look, that's enough of me. It's time for me to hand over to me talking to Angelica Lindeberg of the Swedish Women's Hockey League. So, Angelica, thank you so much for joining us here in Madrid. You've just come fresh off stage to talk about what you're doing with the Svenska Damens Hockeyligan, or SDHL. Talk us through just what you've been talking about, I guess. But before we jump into that, tell us a little bit about the construct of the league, how many teams, where you play, and let's start from there, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, so the SDHL was actually founded 2016. So next year we're actually celebrating the 10 years anniversary. So that sounds very fun. So we are 10 teams in the leagues, and they are playing 36 games, 18 home, 18 away, throughout the country. And it's, as you know, it's a very long country, so it's long traveling. We're playing mostly Fridays and Sundays, and it's like our most important thing now, I would say, is like we have to kind of find a way to raise the visibility about the audience to come to the games. So it's been a fun journey the last 10 years, but we're kind of looking forward now, like what to the next step will be.
And so when you joined and started as CEO, what was really the main focus for you then? Was it the media side initially, or was it basically everything that a CEO has to be focused on when running a league?
It's a funny story, actually. So I've been working with the league for 8 years now. And as I mentioned, we were founded 2016. So the first 2 years, there were no one working with the league. So when I started as the first one to actually get hired at the SDHL. So it was kind of I used to say, like, I had a white paper in front of me, and there were no one that has kind of draw something like ever. So it was kind of to collect it from, like, okay, we have to kind of look it from the schedule. How would that look like, and how would the media rights look like? Do we have any partners? No, we don't. And the funniest thing there was, like, I was hired to be a marketing coordinator, and that was not my job, to be honest. I was kind of from the beginning a CEO as what I did. Not in the role as a title, but I actually did everything. So I was the sport director, I was the media, I was the marketing. But I think that has actually helped me a lot when now being the CEO, because that was what I like in May. It have helped me to actually understand every positioning of the company, and knowing that it's nothing is easy, but I know how we actually can progress it forward.
So what is the relationship exactly with the Swedish Hockey League, the Swedish Men's Hockey League? Because obviously there's a lot of the teams are synonymous with both, I believe, universally. What is the relationship exactly, ownership-wise, or who owns the league?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. I mean, we are a limited company, so both the SHL and the SDHL are limited company, but we are not collaborating
Okay.
between us. So our 10 clubs are owning the league as well as for the SHL. So SHL are 14 teams and we are 10 teams. And compared to SHL, we have 8 teams in the SDHL that are also playing in the SHL. So of course it's a lot of things that are the same, but we are not in an ownership. We are not doing anything more than just kind of talking.
So let's talk about the process to work out the right media strategy the media strategy you've ended up taking. What was that process like? And I'm guessing you didn't don't jump straight into the idea of doing YouTube. You thought about all sorts of different avenues first. Just what was that like? How did you go through that? What were some of the steps you took and conversations you might have had?
I mean, to give background, we have had a TV agreement since 2019. So we were one of the first women's leagues to actually have that type of a TV agreement, even though it might not give us that type of revenue. But now when we were sitting around the table with the different companies saying like, what are we going to do? Are we going to extend or are we going to go to another one? We have slightly different opinions about the value of women's hockey and the women's hockey league in Sweden. So when coming to that decision, we kind of ended up, okay, we don't get any offer from having offers. We don't get any offers, but we need to get the product out there. So how do we do that? And to be very transparent, this was in June and we were dropping the puck in September 5th. So it was something is going to happen.
3 months time, yeah.
So when I together with Victor Johansson, who is the one that I'm cooperating with, we sat down and he said like, what about YouTube? And I was like, I've had this in my mind for a couple of years back. And then it was like, oh, I don't think that's the thing. But now when he actually said it, was like, I think maybe that's the right choice for us to do. Since being on, to be honest, I mean, we have been working with this league for 10 years, but the audience growth hasn't been there, even though it's racing, but it hasn't been there. So for us to actually go to YouTube was a way of kind of lower the barriers. I mean, getting more people to actually watch women's hockey rather than have to pay first in order to be interested. So that is kind of the strategy here, that we want to make more people to see the games before they have to pay for it. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk, before we go a bit further on the YouTube part, talk a bit about the Swedish media market, because I think for some people might not be familiar with it, and I'm actually still learning it because I consume a bit of Swedish content, but that's still a learning phase for me even after 10, 11 months there. Is you have quite established players, there's a very strong pay TV arena, you do have obviously SVT and TV4 and so forth. What would those they have obviously on demand and streaming products as well as their linear channels, but did that come on the radar potentially even of being available in their ecosystems, or they weren't really keen to pursue that, or was that you not keen to just be lost in their ecosystem?
I would say a combination. So since we have been on SVT and TV4 for until since 2019, we kind of had this opportunity now to actually say, okay, what matters the most? What do we actually wanted to execute here? And as I mentioned, I mean, we think, or I think personally, that it has been great for us to be in that type of context, to be accepted, to actually be seen by a lot of people. But for us to grow and also to get those revenue, but also to monetize and grow the fan base, we have to kind of look it from a different perspective. And we always say that we shouldn't compare it with men's hockey. And we still are in that context. Of course, we're going to be compared. So for us, we had the opportunity to be on their kind of OTT, but that investment would have been the same as for being on YouTube. So with all those kind of things in mind, we thought like maybe we should just take a risk. For us to do this, I think it was right in time. And I think for us now to also see all this data that YouTube provides, and also to own everything. I mean, I said it on stage. I mean, when giving it to a TV producer or TV media house, you kind of lose track of your own product, to be honest. And now we understand that there's a lot of things to do. And I mean, as someone I also mentioned on stage, like, it's not only like having distribution of games, you have to create a lot of things to actually keep you interest. And that's something we kind of now developing.
So you talked internally and said, why not look at YouTube? But there's still a couple of steps there afterwards to get support from the teams and all other stakeholders as part of that. What was that like? What did you have to do before you could get the official, we're going all full steam ahead with YouTube?
I mean, it wasn't easy, even though it went fast, since we had to kind of take a decision. So we started off presenting for my board, and there were a lot of questions because everyone is kind of faced into this traditional thing, and I think everyone thinks very high about traditional media, and that's fair. But I think to actually get as many and many mentioned. I mean, we have to kind of get the younger audience to think this is interesting, and that's not about traditional TV yet. So it was a lot of convincing and having arguments for why this is good, and connect that to our strategy, which is to raise interest and popularity of women's hockey. And when that was done, it was to present it for the owners, which are the clubs, the 10 clubs, and everyone has to align with that. So that was also interesting. We have a lot of every club is good, but some are more forward, to be honest. So, and obviously, when they said like, "What's to actually miss here?" I mean, we have to try, and then there was kind of like, "Let's do this." So it was not that dramatic, but it was. From my personal thing, I was like scared, to be honest, because I have one thing to do, and it's to create revenue. And here was about to invest something who we previously got money from.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge for sure. So you got the green light. What were some of the things you did then? Did you, prior to that, making that decision, did you have a heavy dialogue with YouTube at all about that and how they could support it, or was that really just you working out your own journey there? And then what steps did you have to take to manage the broadcast, the production? Was that already in place from your previous relationship, or did you have to do something different there?
No, to be honest, no, because we didn't reach out, because we were just like, okay, we need to make this happen. And in summer in Sweden, I mean, everyone is kind of just taking their computer down, saying bye.
Yeah,
See you
people
in
don't
August.
understand that that's really a thing in Sweden, right? Where basically people do shut down. It becomes a ghost town in your area for a few weeks, and everyone is off doing their own thing. It's for those in English speaking markets, that's a quite a different thing and difficult thing to get their heads around.
Yeah, and this was just like before midsummer, and after midsummer, that it's going to happen. So for us, it was like, okay, YouTube, we take contact with them after the vacation, and now it's just about going out with it, because everyone was kind of, okay, what's going to happen? Everyone knew that, okay, we had this agreement that were actually either way it's going to be extended or not. And everyone was kind of haunting us, like, okay, what's going to happen? And the players didn't know. So it was kind of a mess, to be honest, but it was also for us to just kind of have control before we say something. So no, we didn't have any conversation with YouTube, though we do have it now, and they are super supportive. And the funniest thing were in the first meeting that we had with them, Michelle Kadir in Sweden, she said like, the funniest thing is like, we have a strategy that we're going to reach out to leagues now, and you just kind of did my job. And I was like, amazing. But they are super supportive, and talk about us in different areas when they speak.
Okay, so you're up and running using Sportway to help get the broadcast production. I'm familiar with that team here. They're actually here as well. Now you're up and so basically you're up and running more or less off of that. The stream to the YouTube was a go, and that was all fairly straightforward to get up and running. Were there any major challenges that you faced getting it actually that first game live?
No, I think it was kind of undramatic. The thing now is like, we obviously, our clubs wanted to have all the cameras up when for the first game, and that was not possible. I mean, it's a lot of things to do to install the games. Or the cameras, and so we have had a one camera solution now the first games, and now I think 1st of December now we will have all the cameras up, and I think it's also fun because the first thing was like, okay, we're going for YouTube, and that was a big thing, and now we can in December go out, okay, now we have all the cameras, so it helps us to kind of stay out there and people wanting to talk about us. But it has been kind of undramatic. Of course, it's some things that are missing in some ways, or the network is kind of losing. But that can happen for whatever. So it's not only for YouTube and us being there.
So how has it performed for you? Have you been happy with the numbers? Can you share any insight just into what sort of scale you've been able to achieve? And is that staying constant, or is it maybe going up or down since it's been live?
I mean, it's not a surprise that I was actually exceeded by the numbers. We don't get all the numbers from TV productions earlier, as I guess all of people knows. But we actually got from the TV production that they've never seen those numbers when we were under their kind of umbrella. So that is something. And we were kind of like, for the first game, me and Victor talked, and it was like, okay, if it's 500 people watching live, that would be amazing. And then when the first game was kind of happening, and I'm sitting on the live at the arena, and I watch it like, oh my God, it's over 2,000 people watching now, like live. And then after when the game was done, and the next day it was 19,000 impressions. So obviously people think this is a good idea because now you can actually watch it. It's accessible, and you can watch it from whenever, but also outside of Sweden. So that was really good for us, I think. And then now when we're 2 months in, we can also see things that many people ask, like how are people actually going to find you, and how's for the older people, will they actually find you? And over 64% are from like watching TV, and the audience like over 60 years old are very high. So obviously they find us.
That sounds great. So now you talked about one of the challenges is driving revenue for the league. How do you see that now playing out now that you've got the YouTube visibility and that's all working for you? Will you be relying, for example, mainly on YouTube's tools to drive revenue, or are you now able to, and are they helping you maybe have conversations with more brands and partners to tell that story better?
Yeah, I think, I mean, primarily we will start off, and we have started off with the YouTube ads just to kind of get some things going. But along the way, we are obviously with the present partners to actually talk with, like, now you have visibility that you didn't collect former, but now you can have it. So they are super interested, and other brands that now see like, okay, maybe it's cheaper to go into SDHL, but get really good visibility rather than go to a more expensive league, to be honest.
Yep.
So we will look into that. But I mean, as I mentioned, it went fast. So we kind of learning to walk at the same time we're running, and that has been a challenge because we together with my organization, but also the clubs, want to do all these things, and we want to do this and that, and then we just kind of go one step back and say like, okay, but do we actually know how to do it? And no, we don't. But we have to kind of and that's the thing. I mean, we have passion for it, so that's what's going to go make us going forward. But we have to, I think, take one thing at a time, and then do it right, and then it's going to be wrong. It's going to be things that we do that is not successful, and that's okay. And I think that is something we have to kind of, within Sweden, within the women's hockey, and especially hockey in general, it's kind of conservative in Sweden. You can't do wrong. And here I think we have a place to take that. We try and we take innovative things, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work. And that's not the entire thing.
So you're now up and live on through your own channels. Are you doing anything through, say, the teams channels? What are you giving them access to? Do they have, for example, in some leagues, there's heavy restrictions on what sort of content the teams themselves can publish through their own YouTube channels, let's say, or other social channels. Are you giving them? Do they have a lot of flexibility to do their own thing? And well, let's start there. Do they have a lot of flexibility to do stuff, or you focus on growing the SDHL core channel first?
I mean, I think it's a benefit for us when they actually want to do things. So they have flexibility, and they can do pretty much what they want to do with the highlights or the content that they get, or download the entire game and do whatever. So I think that's one thing that we want to focus on, to just say that do these things, because to be honest, I mean, SDHL it's big, but the clubs are bigger. So if they do things, that will help us to grow the SDHL. But if we only do it and keep it on the SDHL channel, it will take much longer.
And you talked before about the athletes have been supportive of this move. Where do you see that there'll be, for example, there's other leagues like, for example, the Women's Super League in the UK, the football league that they have there, they've actually given a lot of rights and tools to the athletes to create their own content. Is that something that may be on the horizon, is to try and give more access and more opportunity for the athletes themselves to leverage the league and the content that you're creating?
Yeah, I think so. And I think we're talking a lot with the PWHL in North America, and they've done a tremendous work the last 2 seasons, and they have done things that we want to kind of copy with pride here, which is to give the athletes a lot of things for them to actually provide on their social media. And I think that is something in Europe, and particularly in Sweden, it's kind of it's hard for the like the athletes to actually be big on social media, because I guess I mean it's you shouldn't stand out in Sweden, and you shouldn't believe you are something, and that is kind of a hard thing to come around. So we have to kind of find a way where they can be ambassadors and big on social media without connecting that to be real influencers, because that has kind of a negative thing in Sweden. When it comes to our athletes. So, and then also it's a hard environment on social media. I don't know if it's that in North America, but they're saying that it's pretty good. So, and that could be right or wrong, I don't know. But the athletes don't say that it's a lot of hate and negative things on their social media. But in Sweden, there's a lot of that. So
Really?
so I think, so I think we have to kind of come around that, so they kind of feel like it's a safe environment to publish things.
Well, so I mean, look, I'm not. I think each market's different, and Sweden every market in Europe and across the world has its own unique characteristics. But so I'll be interested to see how that does play out. But look, I'm conscious of time, so I think we've covered quite a good overview of what you've been up to, and I really look forward to following the SDHL journey from here. And I was saying before that we started recording that I was trying to get to a game this weekend before we came here, but I couldn't make it happen because then I had to fly out to this event in Madrid. But a big thank you, Angelica, for joining us and sharing the story.
Thank you, and you will have multiple opportunities, Coach.
Absolutely. Cheers. Thank you.